Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the September 21st meeting of the Richland County Finance and Personnel Committee. Clerk, was there proof of notification?
Yes.
Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Brewer.
Here.
Cooley.
Here.
Gentis.
Here.
Buck.
Here.
Murphy Lopez.
Here.
C.
Here.
Kirk. 6 present, 1 absent.
Okay, and I just want to double check, is Supervisor Clerk not on the WebEx call? Yes.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Kirk informed me that he was not going to be able to participate today at this time.
Okay, great. Thanks for that information. So we do have a quorum, so we can carry on with our agenda here today. So item number 3, agenda approval. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor of the agenda, signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? That motion carries. We have an agenda. Agenda item number 4. September 1st minutes approval. The minutes are both on the website and for county board members. They're on the iPads as well. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion by Supervisor Gentis. Second by Supervisor Cooey. Are there is there any discussion on the September 1st minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the September 1st minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Are any opposed? Agenda item number 5, 2021 budget options and amendments. Before I go on to this one, I just want to mention a couple of house rules. Just please make sure that if you have a cell phone with you, that it's turned all the way down for phone calls, text messages, and other sorts of notifications. And then also, this meeting is being recorded, so please be aware of that. If anyone wishes to speak, I just want to make sure that you know it's recorded and that these meetings are posted on the website. And then also, obviously, we encourage everyone to wear a mask with the current mandate from the governor rather. And if you would like to attend our meeting, but either don't want to wear a mask or can't wear a mask, or if you otherwise don't want to come here in person, you can always join on WebEx, on video conference, or you can join in by calling on the phone. Okay, so with that, agenda item number 5, 2021 budget options and amendments. Administrator Weinberg.
Mr. Chair, you'll be able to see in your committee folder and also posted on the website underneath today's meeting, the agenda minutes page, document here today, number 05, survey. The motion today looking for is motion for finance and personnel to direct a dollar amount in budget adjustments to address the 2021 budget gap and obligations, and to direct departments and partners to amend budgets accordingly for submission at the next Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. In previous meeting, Finance and Personnel took action to commit to no less than $1,457,042.21 in budget adjustments to address 2021 budget gap and obligations. The committee also took actions to set the list of amended budget adjustment options and to solicit members of the county board of supervisors for consideration.
Let's hold on for just a second.
It's fine, go ahead.
Okay, just make sure, please don't speak or have the microphone turned off. Keep it to a whisper, please, so we can hear our presentation. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Langreich, sorry.
All right, the committee also took action to accept the list of amended budget adjustment options and to solicit members of the county board of supervisors for consideration of their responses at the next Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, which is today. As such, a survey was solicited with all 21 board members responding. The results of the survey are attached with 2 additional lists indicating the merit preference support order by county board by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Scrolling down then to the first document, I hope it should be laid out for you in portrait if you're looking out of the the folder. It is a very busy kind of a grid taken from a spreadsheet. And I apologize, due to time constraints, this was basically kind of copy, cut, pasted out of the workbook using for this. But what you're seeing there is
Mr. Langreich, I just want to make sure everyone is on the same
We're
page.
not there.
Okay,
we'll wait for you there.
let's hold off just a second. So we're looking, and just for members of the public also, or other staff that are here, we're looking at a 7-page document. You can access this document by going to the Finance and Personnel Committee website and then scrolling down to the September 21st meeting. And I believe there's only one document that we're looking at today.
That is correct. It's all underneath the same PDF file, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're on page 2 right now. So if folks want to either use their phones or whatever computers they have so they can see the document that the administrator's reading from. Just want to make sure everyone, oh, and it's up also on the screen here, for folks who are online. Is there anyone besides Supervisor Gentis who's having difficulty accessing the document?
Linda, when you do get there, you're going to find the print so amazingly small that it would be terrifically anticlimactic.
I can't read that.
You'll be disappointed that you still can't.
Okay, you can carry on, Mr. Langer. Sorry to interrupt you twice.
Okay. Okay, so the document, the results of the survey broken down by the 21 districts with the responses coming across the rows to the different items that were solicited out, the 31 items. You'll see a couple of the items are in a little bit of a shaded markings on there, and I'll explain that in a minute. But going across then the columns, you'll see that there is an average board score, and then I also took an average column there for average F&P, which is the average score placed by you folks, members of finance and personnel. And you'll see a differential column, which is kind of just a little bit of a statistician type of a thing there. The differential column is showing the difference between the two. So taking like the top line, you'll see that the finance and personnel, or the difference is 2.64. So what that means is that when it's going to be a positive number, you'll see finance and personnel is more in favor of it, the average of 2.64. Ones that are negative would mean that the finance and personnel are in less favor of it than the county board. And then you'll see the item and then the dollar amount estimated calculated that item, that adjustment.
Today, I don't know why.
Down at the bottom of the document, you'll see that there's some notes down there. These were notes of adjustments that were made to the results, the actual individual results solicited back from the supervisors. You'll see in the notes, like in number 4, this is on the bottom of the same page, Supervisor Gentis.
Page 1.
Page number 2, the 2021 budget adjustment survey results. A very busy spreadsheet looking document. So district number 4, there was 2 number 15s entered in. So the fix on this was I took the 15s and made them into 15.5s and then added one value to 16 and thereafter to try to preserve the integrity of the study. The next one with District 5, there was 2 17s and no 30. The fix became to make those 17.5 and then add the values 18 and beyond. District 6, there was NA placed in with no 31. So we added a 16, a midpoint value to the one that was not responded to as kind of a neutral value, and then added one, all the numbers higher than that. District number 8, there was a missed value in column, in row B, and there was not a 17 value used, so 17 was added to the B value, to that column. District 10, there was 2 number 1s and no 16, so we made the 1s into a 1.5, and added a 0.5 to the remaining, and then we had District 21, there was a missing E, that did not use a value 1, so we added the 1 to the value E. So these were the adjustments made again to try to preserve the integrity of the study underneath the time constraints of not soliciting it back out to do it again. The argument of whether then this truly represents the supervisor's view on it could be negotiable, but those were the adjustments made and they did impact the averages. Any questions on this page, Mr. Chair? You want me to go through all of them first? Okay. So then moving into the next document, you'll just see another scanning of the survey that was solicited, and this is for reference back. As you see in the results, we're typically just kind of referencing the letter number associated with the agenda item. So the survey was put in there as a way to reference back to again understand what the item was. Below that, then you'll see survey results from the county board average. And this is a one-page document. And it has a first column with a.
So can you reference the page number?
Yeah, you
you're
got a
on,
reference
Mr.
page.
Langer?
I'm sorry, I'm at page 6.
Should be page 6 of 7 for folks following along.
Thank you. Page
Just
6
skipped
of
over
7.
a few pages here.
Yeah.
So we're on page 6 of 7 at the top of the heading, survey results from county board average. And on the left, you'll see a column of the average. And make sure I've got this correct here. So the top one, the first one that says survey results from county board average is from the county board. On the column there above the 6.79, it says mistakenly average from finance and personnel. That is incorrect. This is the ones from county board. You'll see the item that is listed, the total adjustment cost, and then a running total on the merit going down. So you'll see we'll go down then all the way to an item 8, a furlough, and a black line. And that indicates the items that would have to be above the bubble in order for us to be our goal of 1,457,000 and change. And then there's a slight differential there that shows how far you'd have to go into the final one to make up the difference. The last page then, 7 of 7. Again, this is the survey results from finance and personnel average. Please line change. Well, actually, don't line change. That means you're making marks on your iPad. Don't write on your iPads. It's average board should be finance and personnel to match that with the column starting with 2.57. And you'll see the items then. You'll see the adjustment and the running total. And then that goes all the way down to item number Z to make up the total goal with the difference of how far you'd have to go into Z then to reach the goal amount. And I know this is just put out to you folks. Perhaps maybe 31 minutes ago, we had this up on the website. There's a lot to digest. But the notice points then obviously become the county board's perception and recommendations based on their averages, slightly different from what we're seeing with finance and personnel. Some of those items include the general fund use, which shows above the bubble on finance and personnel, significantly below the county board. You'll see furlough on the county board comes up above into the bubble. Around finance and personnel, it is not, as well as some discrepancies again in health and human services, another kind of an outlier. And in viewing the outliers, again, it might be kind of best viewed on that first page of the survey document. You'll see in the differential column, the ones with the largest numbers show the largest swing between the two groups. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I just want to provide a little bit of a reminder of context here. So we did ask, this committee asked the whole board to take this survey and to rank these 31 budget adjustment items from 1 to 31. And if we go to page 4 of 7 in the upper right-hand column, 1 indicates that a particular board member was more in support of this adjustment, and 31 indicates they're less in support of this adjustment. So any item, obviously Mr. Langer averaged these together so we could see what the whole board thought of this and what the whole finance and personnel committee separately from the board thought of these items. So a lower score means there was more support from the board for making a particular budget adjustment. And a higher score means there's less support for making a particular budget adjustment. So going back to the cover sheet now, our our potential goal for today, for this committee, is to walk out of here with some sort of a motion that details what the budget adjustments would be that would be recommended to staff to make, so that by the time we come back here in 8 days, at our next Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, we are recommending a final budget to the county board.
And did we decide? Yeah, I'm gonna leave mine here. You can hang.
That's okay. So, so then staff will take whatever final budget we approve at the September 29th meeting out of this committee, and they'll advertise it to the public. And then that budget will come back to the October 27th county board meeting for the full county board to consider approval. So there are still different checkpoints along the way, or different action days when we have to take action as a committee or as a board. So there are other opportunities to make changes, but our goal today is to recommend a set of budget adjustments that staff can work into that final budget that will then go to the public. I just want to remind everyone of that step we're at today, and the hope is to get out of here with a list of specific budget adjustments today.
The next meeting is coming night.
So Supervisor Gentis, I need you to pull your microphone up so that everyone can hear you who's online.
I didn't know when the next meeting was, and you referred to it, but I never heard when.
So tentatively, what we had adopted as a committee was that our Finance and Personnel Committee meeting would be on September 29th, where we would consider a final budget. And that's what we've already adopted through our budget
What
process.
time?
That, we have not determined that yet, and that's later in the meeting, so we'll figure that out. Okay, so just wanted to provide that context for folks, and with that, committee members have questions or comments for Mr. Langner?
I have a question.
Yeah, Supervisor
I mean,
Love.
it's not really a question, I guess it's an observation, but, so if I'm looking at this correctly, the upper list that you have below the bolded line in both lists does not actually meet our goal. We're still gonna have to pick some, even if we were to select all of those items above that black line, we still need to pick some other items to meet our goal. Is that correct?
The items above the black line will get us past the goal and surpass it. Like in the top one there for county board, you'll see that the running total for item AA furlough will actually take us out to 1,611,000. So then you'll see the goal the goal amount falling between B and AA.
Okay, so you basically, it was going over. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other committee members?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, Supervisor Brewer?
at the last meeting, did we not pass a motion to take the Regional Planning Commission out of this? That's why I didn't count it in. Come again.
I can speak to that, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Brewer, we had two items that I had on the list. One was for regional planning membership. The other one that remains on the list is with the EDA grant. So we took action to remove the membership one, as we could break our partnership, but we'd still have obligations to make our contributions this year. And remove that from the list, leaving the grant one that was on.
Okay, other committee members? Okay, if folks have other clarifying questions, you can ask, yep, Supervisor Gentis?
I guess I'm upset that that resolution 1989 is on the top of both lists.
Okay, so just so everyone understands the context for that comment. So resolution 1989 is the resolution that says that We will increase wages for employees by a step in the coming year, and that amount was $242,000. Because it's above the line, in both scenarios, from either if you look at the county board average or the finance and personnel committee average, there was not enough support for that item. So one of the budget adjustments, should we go with one of these sets, there would be no raise for county employees in 2021. Supervisor Seat.
So that was my question, and you answered it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Supervisor Cooey? Hang on.
I think we might have to get a little bit closer, Supervisor.
Oh, there, all right. So this is results from both, but we're not limited to going through this, and if we see an option to merge them together today, we could make that change? That's a question.
It is by structure, by county board structure, the task and responsibility for this group to bring forward a budget. I have state statute language that says that it's my job to then propose it to the county board. There's a survey information here brings back essentially an opinion to you to consider of what might carry and what might not through a county board meeting. Still up to this group and myself to work together to come up with what that's going to look like. How much we want to weigh and consider the opinions based on survey or based on reports and data is up to debate.
Right. Thank you.
So with that, that's probably a good segue for us to have a discussion about what we are comfortable with as a committee. I would just point out a couple other differences that jumped out at me this morning when I looked at this. So the county board as a whole has less comfort with using the general funds than this committee has. Another thing that jumped out at me was that this committee has less comfort with, and I'm not going to get all departments, I'm not going to be able to compare all of them here, but has less comfort with making cuts to the Health and Human Services Department than the county board does as a whole. I don't know if there's other ones that jump out to other folks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Brewer.
specifically on the reductions for health and human services, that was there twice, basically, wasn't it? The first one was $120,000 reduction, which had been budgeted. The second was an ask for another $100,000, I believe.
And I guess, yes, that's correct. There's two different pots. The $120,000 came to us in the first package on September 1st. We never approved that as a cut, however. And then the additional $100,000 came when we had our meeting last Wednesday. So there are two different cuts or budget adjustments, and both groups, no matter whether it was the county board or the finance and personnel committee, were more comfortable with that initial $120,000 budget adjustment than the $100,000 one.
Right. The two have to be separated in their thought process.
The other one that jumps out here to me is that the furlough idea. I'd say the county board as a whole is more comfortable with the furlough idea because it ranked higher. It had a score of 17.5 points. And I probably should say it ranked lower in number, but that means there's more comfort from the full county board. Whereas the finance and personnel committee gave that a score of 21, meaning we were less comfortable with the furlough option than all 21 members of the board. Now, one thing that strikes me too as I look at this is that, ultimately the county board approves the budget. The finance and personnel committee recommends a budget to the full county board. So I think this document is helpful in that we can see where the differences are between us as a group and where the whole county board sits. And, I think this document is helpful in that we can see where the differences are between us as a group and where the whole county board sits. And, I think this document is helpful in that we can see where the differences are between us as a group and where the whole county board sits. And because ultimately the whole county board votes on the budget, I think that's why it's kind of helpful to see these broken out, like Mr. Langred broke them out, so we can see the differences. Supervisor Luck?
So do you have any indication of, so the original 220,000 for the furlough was for 20 days, but if we only need to fill 153,000, do you have any indication how many days that would be? It would be 20.
Correct, it would be lower. On top of that too, and refining the numbers regarding the $220,000 for a fill, a consideration point that I neglected in understanding and sharing with you at the last meeting was the fact that it's not terribly defined. We'd be going off of past practice. So I did have concerns with departments on, bringing a proposal to you as an option, but without refining it down to exactly which chairs are going to be susceptible to that. It would come as a reduction, and I'd be looking at past practice of what was exercised the last time we had done it, but I do not have a planned out exact by the position plan for you on impacts.
Can I offer another comment? So in my opinion, I don't want to see this budget having to be balanced on the shoulders of all our employees. So we're not giving them a raise, which I'm actually comfortable with not giving them a raise. It's tough times and it is what it is. But then if we're not going to give them a raise, I don't want to give them a cut in pay by increasing their premiums on their insurance, messing with their insurance and furloughs. So I guess I'd like to see, I'm one of those people that's maybe a little more in favor of tapping into the general fund, because in my mind, the general fund is your rainy day fund, what you use when you, and although we've been spending it when we shouldn't the last however many years, this is actually a year where there's a legitimate need. So those are just my thoughts.
Okay, Supervisor Gentis?
I totally agree. I'm actually quite opposed to not having the increase, and definitely, I don't think we should have the furlough. I don't understand that the county board voted for both those things. I will not vote for
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Seat?
thank you. I concur with Supervisor Luck's statement. I think given our financial circumstances, we could certainly justify not giving an increase in wages. But I am opposed to, again, hitting them on the insurance net. Somehow we need to have a solution that does not further the burden of insurance costs to employees. We're hit pretty heavily already with that.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little clarifying here on where these different issues fall within the survey averages. So for the county board was more comfortable, and it came very close to the dividing line with a proposed increase to full-time general employee premium share, and I believe that was from 12% to 14%. With the remaining health insurance options, those fall below the line where the county board was less comfortable with those additional changes to employee health insurance. If we go to the finance and personnel averages on page 7 of 7, the finance and personnel committee, all of the health insurance changes fell below the line, where if we accepted everything that was above the line as budget adjustments, there would be no need to change anything with health insurance compensation for employees. But also, this finance and personnel committee would have not given employees a raise in 2021 because that's just above the line. So there's just a little bit of a difference between the full county board and this committee. The full county board is comfortable with that increase in premiums. This committee, on average, I should say, was less comfortable with that option.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Supervisor Seat.
Did you say that the full county board was in support of the proposal to increase wages?
I did not, but yes, that is the case, is the whole county board was more in support. We have to be careful in how we summarize how the county board felt, because it's not that the county board felt that wages shouldn't be increased. It was when they were prioritizing various cuts against one another, that average for the score about giving a wage increase fell into the area where we would still need to have that be a budget adjustment. So I just don't want people to say that the county board is in support of something or not in support of something, because we ask people to rank and prioritize.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair,
Yes, Supervisor Gentis?
now I am confused. I thought we were looking for 1,470,238, and here is now 1,457. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So how did that change?
The number changed from last meeting based on some different obligation number that we had changed, but that was the motion that came up from the committee was $1,457,42. I think from last meeting, we added in obligation for, using the general funds, I think that, or no, I'm sorry, a resolution for the step increase was kind of put in as an obligation.
Yeah, correct.
And then balanced out as an option to reduce out of the bottom.
Okay, so we don't need to have, we can go back 155,000 on the finance and personnel, right?
In looking at document number 7 of 7 on the bottom, is that where you're referencing right now?
I think so.
Yep. In looking at in between items number T and Z, the resolution for the taking out the step increase that we're trying to get, the goal amount falls in between those two running values. So you'd have to utilize all or a portion of the general fund use to cover the projected gap in order to meet the goals and obligations.
So one question I have for committee members is, which sheet are you more comfortable using? The full county board averages or this
Let's
committee's
give us some time
averages?
to review.
Supervisor Left?
At this point, I'm more comfortable with finance and personnel list.
Thoughts from committee members?
I think this is a good way to make a great list if we take the two and put them together. I think there's some things that finance and personnel has, and I think there's some things that the county board has, where I think we could make a great budget here and make some changes to save a bunch of the smaller departments and yet still get what we want. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
And then I think we'll just go kind of around the room here to make sure everyone has a say in this question. Supervisor Seep, are you ready?
Yes, I'm comfortable with the finance and personnel approach. I see that Mr. Cooley, as always, that there perhaps is room for budget by taking a look at both sets.
Supervisor Brewer?
Let's talk about the general fund, or fund balance, whatever you want to call it. Based on our total spending budget of annually $30-some million, I think, yeah, right. Our goal is 25% of that number. Mr. Langred, I guess I'm asking you that question.
By resolution, correct?
Okay, and that would amount to how much then?
By resolution, about $8 million.
$8 million, right? Okay. And what are we talking about here? The difference between the budget as proposed, and we're trying to make a total. I know that the big number here is bigger, but our goal is 1.4 million. I think.
Yes, there's
To balance.
another part of the piece of this to potentially review is the resolution on if our goal is going to be 25% of our complete operating expenses, or if it's going to be expenses out of the actual general fund, if you will.
I was part of the board who voted for resolution 1519. And I know at the time, it was discussed, we've got to do this, because we were really worried about our Moody bond rating, because we borrowed money. And in fact, the Moody rating came back disappointingly lower than we had anticipated, so, we felt we just had to get control of this, and we buckled down and adhere to this number. And I know you don't have this information ready for me today, but I would be interested in knowing over the years, like we don't have to go back 100 and whatever it is, the county's been around, but how many years, budget cycles, has the county actually been able to maintain a 25% equal to general revenue spending, a 25%, and we always call that a reserve in the insurance industry, a reserve, checkbook balance, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, I know that's really good and fiscally responsible, but I'm thinking if we loosen that up a little bit, not talking about giving away the bank, but we're only talking, I mean, out of a total number of, what was it, 8 million, about?
What we're, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, almost, isn't it? Yeah. Well, we're not talking about a tremendous decrease in the percentage, that's all I'm saying. So I'm one of the advocates of using the general fund. But you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. Please do.
Are you ready, Supervisor Gentis, or should I go first?
First.
Okay, so, I tend to be more comfortable myself with the full county board average, because ultimately, I think it's the full county board's budget. On October 27th, the full county board has to vote on this. It's not just the finance and personnel committee. We're making recommendations to them, of course, but I'm a little hesitant to say that this committee should have, obviously, we're going to have more background, we're going to have more, have thought about this in more detail, but at the same time, I would be really interested to know what the county board thought about, as a whole, thought about this committee using our averages more than their averages. The second thing is, with the general fund, and I should back up a little and say, I don't think that means that we couldn't make adjustments to a proposed set of adjustments that come out of the county board averages. I guess I'm just a little more hesitant to use the finance and personnel set of budget adjustments as a starting point. But I can think of exceptions myself, like the furlough, which is right on the line for the county board. That seems like, because it's right on the line, maybe we should make some adjustments to that one. So that's what I mean when I say I'm open to suggesting some changes to the full county board compared to their averages. I also don't think that the full county board has really been able to weigh in and ask questions and really study this like we have been able to. And I do hope that no matter what comes out of this committee today, that we can sit down with the full county board, perhaps at the next finance and personnel committee, and have somewhat of a study session where all county board members can ask questions and weigh in on things. Even if we have already made a recommended final budget, we might get some ideas from that on the way to our October 27th meeting. Regarding the general fund issue, from what I have learned in the past about our auditor and our bond raters, they have been consistently concerned with our challenges related to cutting expenses and raising revenues. They think we've consistently we have some issues with that. And the 25% figure that's part of that resolution, I remember at the last time the auditor came, which would have been almost a year ago now, would have been late in 2019, they were giving us the figure for the end of 2018 where we were at. And we were at, we ended up coming at just over 25%. That was post-budget approval. So we approved the 2020 budget. We had already approved it thinking we were going to be slightly below, and we ended up coming out slightly above for 2018. So that's, I know where we were from my memory last time around, and I believe that's in the audit report that we got from the CPA group in local. So I'm assuming we are going to be going up a little bit in our general fund, because my recollection about this past year is we have not dipped into the general fund very often at all. And every time Treasurer Keller brings forward our cash balance history, it seems to be comparing better this year than last year. So I'm hopeful that the general fund, the integrity of it has been kept. I'm comfortable with a little bit of dipping into the general fund. They say we swapped out the furlough with the general fund. I'm not as comfortable with dipping in totally on the general fund because of that pattern that we have with the auditors and the bond raters and how we had our bond rating increased. You know, it seems to me that we have never been able to come up with that combination of cutting expenses and raising revenues. For some reason, as a county, we haven't been able to do both of those. Both of those things are painful to do. And that's what I'm hoping we can face with this budget and make some changes. I'm open to, we talked about the operating referendum for next year, but we can't do that this year with this budget. So I think there are ways we can do those things. I hope we can accomplish that. Supervisor C?
Yes, Mr. Chair. One point that I think is important is that how well we explain our justification for recommending these adjustments will have a bearing on how much input we will have from the county board. And it is incumbent upon us, I think, to do a good, thorough job of explaining each of these adjustments to them and why they were made. Otherwise, we can get into, as you say, some of the county board members are not familiar with all this work that's been done. And that can get into the realm of almost second guessing. It's important to hear all the questions and that we are responsible in answering them. But to be proactive, I think it's very important that we first commit ourselves to giving a good explanation to them for each of these adjustments and the justification for them. Secondly, you spoke about the concern about revenues, the control over revenues and expenses. We don't have much control, in my view, over revenues. What are our revenues? We have fees, which is basically a tax, and they're not very popular, whether it's a fee for having your septic inspected or a building permit fee. They're not very popular. They are a tax. The sales tax is an unknown. We don't know what is going to happen between now and the rest of the year. Businesses are still closed. The future of the coronavirus thing is up in the air and certainly unknown. And we could get an unfortunate surprise as we approach the end of the year in terms of how much revenue we're going to get in sales tax. We don't have any control of that aspect of revenue. We do have more control over cuts. We have an obligation to recommend a balanced budget, and we have to be very careful. I understand Mr. Brewer is concerned about the resolution regarding pay raise. It is possible that as the year goes by, if we freeze the wages now, that if we are in better shape at the middle of the year, there's nothing that says that we can't make an adjustment in the budget to compensate employees more than we presently are. I am adamant about this. If we have a cut in wages, or excuse me, a freeze in wages, we should not touch the insurance cost. It burns it out. Thank you.
Supervisor Gentis?
I sort of disagree with you that I have to go exactly with what the county board wants when we're the ones studying this. I agree with Melissa. I'm quite upset about the fact that the county board had the furlough, the insurance, and the wage cut. I don't think I will not support that at all. And I think we need to discuss that with them and on their backs. I don't quite, and we don't know how much the general fund is going to have at the end of the year. Is that correct?
At the end of this year,
Mhm.
we'll be looking at the number that comes back from our audit from 2019.
Yeah.
We'll be able to make some
We have an
guesstimations
idea.
based on it, but we won't have the exact number for the end of 2020 until the completion of the 2020 audit, which will not
That'll
be
be
available to us
a
until
long
mid.
time. Yeah. Well, I'm much more comfortable with the finance and personnel budget. I am sad to see that the 242,000 is still above the line on resolution 1989. But I don't want the insurance and I don't want the furlough. If they should be definitely not cut. And I think that we need to explain that to the county board. I think everyone would just be upset and they would have my original thing didn't have that in there. I put some other cuts in there, so. I'm done for.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Supervisor Brewer.
the general fund use of $391,000, that is basically making up for this shortfall in institutional costs. Is that correct, Mr. Member?
That is correct. That's correct.
And this year, are we budgeting a more realistic number for institutional costs, or will we get caught again?
The numbers going forward, I think I had misspoken at a previous meeting, are staying the same as they had come into this year. They're at about a little over $1 million and trending at about 1.3. Whether or not that holds or stays true.
So I imagine that during the next budget cycle, we'll be looking at probably a shortfall that's equal to this, if not greater.
Potentially, if it stays on the same type of a trend, that'd be another accounting that we'd be looking to take more out of. Hopefully our other revenues actually pick up this year. We don't have extended pandemic type of things where maybe that is absorbed as it has been historically.
So I would imagine that, I would support general fund use certainly to go get that. If nothing else, it's got to be used for that. Because I have trouble laying the sins of the previous administration on this one. And if we continually under budget for that amount, then we're going to be continually caught with a shortfall. So sometime or other, we've got to start doing realistic budgeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yep, Supervisor C.
So I think Mr. Brewer is saying that instead of, it's training for, say it's training around $1 million. No, it's budgeted at $1 million and it's training toward 1.3 million.
That's correct.
And so I believe what Mr. Brewer is saying, that we should be budgeted for the trend at 1,000,003 as a matter of security. The one patient, one case can add $500,000 to the budget. We've had patients who've been institutionalized, one patient. It's cost over $450,000 for 1 year. So we have no control over that. And it can happen. I'm sure Tracy could confirm this. We have to consider those kinds of contingencies when we budget to be responsible. So I agree with Mr. Gruber that we should probably adjust that budget to 1,000,003.
Okay, so just for the sake of moving things along here, I think there's a lot of opinions that the committee shared now. And what I propose is that we get some motions out on the table with seconds, and then we vote some things up or down, just to kind of officially process what we just said. So the way I'm thinking about this, off the top of my head here, is that we take one of the sets of budget cuts and budget adjustments rather, and we vote up or down on using that as a starting point today. So we can take a roll call vote on something and say whether we're more or less comfortable starting with a certain set. And then once we have that set on the table, the set that the committee feels most comfortable with, then we can start making amendments to that set. And then we'll have to figure out how to move forward with an amended set then to recommend to the full county board. Does that sound like an okay way of handling this?
Question,
Yes, Supervisor Seaton.
are you going to have a motion on each adjustment, A through EE?
No, sir, I was thinking, so for example, just starting in order in the document here, I would think the first motion, which I will argue for, but I think will get voted down based on what I'm hearing, is that the first motion be to approve the budget adjustments above the line on the county board sheet. So that would be my motion, and then if someone would second it, then we can give it out for discussion, and then we will vote on that.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, so a motion by myself and a second by Supervisor Brewer.
Point of information.
Yes, Supervisor Seaton. I think you can go ahead now.
Yes. Point of information that.
Just a second, so IT get that sound cleared up. Okay, we'll let you do that. That's when you're ready. Okay, Supervisor Seaton.
That machine doesn't want me to speak. We're advised by Corporation Counsel that one can make a motion and second a motion and yet vote against the motion. If that's an appropriate procedure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Supervisor Love.
So if I'm understanding this, you made a motion in a second on the county board list, but we are now free to amend it if there's something item on there that we don't want on there. Is that correct?
I would suggest we take a roll call on whether or not to use the county board set of averages as a starting point. And I think based on what I'm hearing in this committee, I'm going to doubt that my motion is going to pass, but I just want to clear it up so that we know where we're starting from. So is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, then I'll ask, go ahead, Supervisor.
So the motion is you're gonna say we're gonna adopt the county board average.
Correct.
But then we'll be free to amend it.
Or we can.
If this committee went along with that
Right.
motion, yes, we would still be free to amend that one. I think the committee is probably gonna wanna start with that set that's gonna be closest to where you guys, this group wants to go. So I'm assuming this will get voted down, but I just want it to be on the record so we are very clear on which set we're starting with. So. there any further discussion? The motion was by myself, and then the second was Supervisor. Okay, so I'll go ahead and, we'll go ahead and do a roll call on this, please, clerk. So we're looking at page 6 of 7. So that's clear on this motion.
Brewer? No. Cooley? No. Cantus?
No,
Luck?
Yes,
Murphy Lopez?
Yes.
Steve?
No,
You in favor of one?
Okay, so that motion fails. So now I think we'll move on to a motion, unless someone else wants to jump in and make this. But I'll go ahead and make the motion that we move forward with the finance and personnel. Actually, I think I'll let someone else do it.
I'll make a motion for finance and personnel.
I'll second.
So a motion by Supervisor Cooley, a second by Supervisor Gentis. Any discussion on this motion? This is the group on page 7 of 7. So yes, that's the second group. Yeah, Supervisor
So,
Gentis.
If we go with this one. Okay, okay. So then we would take the 155.
I don't think it's actually working.
I don't think so either.
Mr. Chairman,
Hold on just a second. Let's let Supervisor Gentis go.
yes,
Okay,
okay.
there we go. Now she's on.
So with this one, we'll take 155,195.79 out of the 391,238. Is that how we're viewing this right now?
I disagree with that. I think this is a starting point, and in my opinion, we're gonna go down through this and lobby to get what we want on there or off of it.
Okay,
Not just
so,
looking at that 155. It's just telling us there's 155 to the good with the way it is today.
okay, so the motion then, and I second it, I better be clear, is that this is our starting point. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I think what we'll do, if the committee's okay with this, is we'll leave this motion on the table, and I think there are going to be several amendments to this particular motion. So if this committee desires to make changes to what's above the line versus what's below the line, committee members will need to make an amendment. They'll need to have that seconded, and then we'll have to vote those up or down before we vote on the entire motion as amended.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor C.
so you're making it clear that this motion does not preclude the possibility of our making subsequent adjustments.
I think before we vote on this motion, we'll make those adjustments. I think we need to make
All
those adjustments right now. So I think if people would like to make adjustments, go ahead and begin proposing those.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly move that we leave the insurance rate as is, rather than approving the proposed adjustment.
Okay, so the insurance adjustments, which are rows BB, CC, DD, and EE, those are all below the line with this particular motion. So that has already been accomplished. It will have already been accomplished if this motion passes.
Thank you.
So the question for the committee is, are there any items that are above the line that you would like to see moved below the line? Or vice versa?
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yep, Supervisor Brewer?
at our last meeting, we talked about the UW food service and some new figures were presented. Does this list reflect the new figures that are adjusted meal rate?
Our discussion from our last meeting, we talked about some increases in charging on meal rates to help bring their balance up. I think the numbers were refigured, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to a $30,000
Right.
impact on the levy versus a $70,000 impact. With that increased revenue is also projected to have an we'd be able to have one full-time employee continue on without having to cease services through UW Food. So that is what went forward out into the survey. Please correct me if I'm incorrect.
You're right. I remember this.
Actually, I'm just gonna point out, here that this committee made the motion to amend that amount from $70,000 down to $30,000. So that was already a decision made by this committee, and that was based on information that Ms. Arneson provided us at the last finance and personnel committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Then I have another question.
Please, one person at a time. Supervisor Lewis.
Another question. I have another question on the highway shop. That's, we have $150,000 there, is that correct? Yes. Highway, but that assumes then that we're giving money back on the loan.
Correct. As discussed, this is $150,000 that would be coming out of operating levy that would not go towards them. But we're anticipating if it does go through with the short-term loan financing of $1 million to allocate $650,000 towards materials for projects.
Could that other 100,000, then that would have been allotted in that also, correct? The other 100,000 for highway?
That is correct.
So both the 250 total would have probably still could have came out of the borrowing, correct?
It will, the 650 is still seen as a block amount. It would essentially be a reduction in $100,000 for highway against either materials or against services and man hours.
I apologize. These committee members, make sure you get recognized by me first, because there were several people competing and I skipped over Supervisor Gentis. So,
Well, I was just, he asked a question, I was trying to respond to that question.
okay. Do you want to go ahead and respond to the question,
Yeah.
Supervisor Gentis?
Yeah, the
Go ahead.
question was, and so they're not gonna be closed, is what we, with that 30,000, that was the whole point.
Okay, any other, and Ms. Arneson? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it can't be just one full-time employee. I didn't know that was on the docket. It has to be two full-time employees.
Okay, I apologize for the full time if I'm misspeaking. Can you iterate again with the reduction from a $70,000 levy impact to a $30,000 NG? What operations maintains? Is that the correct way to say it? Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay, other committee members?
I just have a
Yep,
question.
Supervisor Gentis?
So, we always have to like take the whole amount of forgiveness rather than a portion of it?
I think I can answer that. So at the last meeting, we had the opportunity to make amendments to this set of budget adjustments. And we did amend it. I believe we amended it 3 times. We did change the one that we just discussed, food service. So if there are additional amendments that you would like to make as a member of this committee, now is the time to do that.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Cooper.
Okay, so I've got a list of amendments. I guess I would go down. I remove UW extension, land conservation, registered deeds, Simons, and UW food, which is equals 152,000. And there's a difference in this budget of 155 right now. In my opinion, and for that is I have a hard time going through and destroying these small departments where we have the opportunity to keep them whole.
Okay, so Supervisor Cooper, if you could just go through that list again, but just read very slowly. Each line item name plus the amount, and then the total again.
So UW extension is at 42,000. Land conservation is at 40,000. Register of Deeds is at 20,000. Simons is at 20,000. And UW food service would be at 30,000. The grand total of 152,000, if my math's correct.
I'm confused because Simons is already below the line, we're not cutting.
Okay, let's, before we, get clarification on it, let's see, I think we need a second to discuss the amendment.
I will second the motion.
Okay, so we got an amendment by Supervisor Cooley and a second by Supervisor Seal. So Supervisor Gentis, your question?
I don't understand why you're saying Simons since we already weren't cutting it.
That's my mistake when I was going through the first two, trying to put them together. So scratch the Simons 20,000
That's the question.
at 100, so let's move it to 132.
Okay, then Supervisor Seat, do you accept that as part of his amendment? Your
Yes,
second, okay, thank you.
and I thank Mr. Cooley.
Okay, Supervisor Left.
So what are you proposing with that replacement, that, what you just moved?
That's the difference between if we left the rest of the budget, there's 155,000 extra.
So you're saying use all of the general fund to cover that gap?
Yes.
So you're depleting,
Supervisor Gentis, yep.
you're depleting the whole general fund? Just about?
No, I'm taking the 391,000 that's already in here. We just use all that instead of subtracting the 155,000 from it. We're not gonna use any more than the 391,000.
So basically, it sounds like to me, we would be using the entire general fund amount listed here, the adjustment amount of $391,000, but we'd have to subtract about $23,000 from that amount. So, if I'm doing my math right, following Supervisor Cooley, it'd be about a $368,000 hit in the general fund, instead of a lesser amount. Am I following you right?
That's correct.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I missed the second. That was, just to make sure I got it right. Motion, could we remove UW extension 42,000, land conservation 40,000, register of deeds 20,000, UW food services 30,000 from proposed list? Is that?
That's what Supervisor Cooley said in his amendment, yes. And that would total $132,000. Supervisor Love.
So I spoke with the Register of Deeds yesterday, and, you know, the 20,000 coming from her department is coming from the redaction fund, which we would deplete that fund, but it would not impact the employee. So there would still, we would not be gutting her department. Next year, we would have to come up with the full amount for her employee, her deputy, but at this point, I think the 20,000 is okay, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but she was willing to put that 20,000 in, and it would not currently affect her department for this year. Is that?
Okay, so,
I think we should just get a motion in a second before we go to discussion.
we do have we have an amendment and we have a second already.
Sorry, we have a
And
second.
so I think Supervisor Luck has a question, she's questioning part
Just
of
questioning the
the
20,000,
amendment. So
whether she's
Ms.
comfortable with
Ms. Triggs,
I did say I'm going to give
can you
20,000.
pull the microphone up a little bit? Ms. Triggs? Thank you.
I did say I would be willing to give the 20,000 out of the reaction fund to help the county out. However, the remaining 10,000 I would like to have left in there because there are some books that we had scanned, and as we're going through them, there's a few that were missed, and I would like to have some money left in there to complete that project. But I also don't want my deputy position cut because I need the help to get those books indexed and out on the internet so people can use those, and I can bring in additional revenue for photocopies and so forth. And I can't do it alone or just with a part-time person.
I just want to clarify here that below the line on both versions, whether it's the county board or the finance and personnel committee version, the $10,000 to your department is below the line. So we're only.
I don't have that, what you're
That's
looking at,
okay.
so.
That's okay. No, I'm just explaining it just so you're clear too. The $20,000 is what's above the line, and that would be a budget adjustment under
And
the current
I would be
discussion.
okay with giving that to the county because I mean, my deputy is going to help. And my deputy and myself, we're going to, back index. So I mean, that money could go towards, but that's all the money I have. We don't collect redaction funds anymore. So, I would like, I just don't want to lose my full-time deputy. So I would like, next year, if you could come up with the money to keep a full-time deputy.
Okay, so other committee members? Supervisor Gentis?
I never quite, there's a part-time and extension and a full-time, and you always were putting the full-time, is that correct?
That is what the proposal is, yes.
So what if you kept the part-time and kept the full-time, you know what the difference is there?
I don't know if I have the calculation.
Clint, this is Craig. Can you hear me?
Craig, the rest.
Yeah, the part-time is 20, round numbers, 28,000. Of course, the full-time is 42.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay, any more discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Seat?
is Mr. Cooley comfortable with revising his motion, or do we have to make an amendment?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, as long as the registered deeds is comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. So if we want to remove the 20,000 off of my proposal, and then that would reduce us down to 112, is it? So now we would be removing UW extension, land conservation, and the food, UW food service. And it would equal 112,000 that would be removed from this budget out of the 155 in surplus.
Okay, any further discussion on the amendment? Yep, Supervisor. So I'll read this again. UW extension is $42,000.
Got it, land 40.
And UW food service, $30,000. And those three total up to
Okay, it's
112,000.
only 3 now. That's what I got.
Okay, I think we're ready to take a vote on this one. Let's do a roll call, please, clerk. This is a, if you're voting yes, you'd be voting to make these changes. If you're voting no, you're voting against making these changes.
We're voting on the amendment.
That's correct.
Brewer? Aye. Cooley? Aye. Jensen?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Murphy Lopez?
No.
See?
Aye.
5 in favor, 1.
Okay, so that amendment carries, or that amendment is made to the motion. So any other amendments that committee
Just
members?
saying, all those are now below the line.
That'd be the right way to think about it, Mr. Lincoln.
Yes, we're removing those from essentially the items that were above those were the ones that were more in support of making the adjustment. So we're taking out of those the category of making those adjustments. And they're now below the line off the list, however you view it.
Okay, and then I think it's pretty understood that as part of that, then that we would be dipping into budget adjustment Z, general fund use more.
That is correct.
Okay. I'll make sure that that was clear. Okay, so any other amendments committee members would like to propose?
I just want clarification on that. So we're taking 267,000 now out of the general fund approximately. Is that correct?
Let's take some time and figure that out. I think probably to be clear, we should make sure that we've got the right dollar amount there. Just take a minute or two to let people do calculations and see if we're coming up with the same amount. Okay, I might let Supervisor Cooley take a try. I saw him be done first. How much are we taking out of the general fund? with
Looks
this
like
amendment?
348,238.
Okay, did anyone not get that figure?
I got,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, so it was approximately 155 before, right, 195? And then we took out 112 more, and we add those together, isn't that 267, 695?
Oh,
Because you're taking more.
should take the 112 away from the 155.
348, 143.1.
Yeah, 348, 230. 348, 230.
I also got $348,000 and change. I don't think we need to work out the rough change here. I think we can let the administrator do that after, after we make our series of decisions. But I just want to make sure that it's fairly clear that we're dipping into the general fund $348,000 with this amendment. And we're voting on the motion.
Must be dense, but I'm only adding, it was 155, right? Out?
That was the difference in what the goal was and what the amount there was also.
And now we're adding 112 more, aren't we?
You'd be actually taking a kind of 112 away from that 100.
Yeah.
So Supervisor Gentis, what I did to understand this, I think there's a couple of ways to approach the math problem here. This is a little bit of a word problem. So our goal today is to cut $1.457 million.
Right.
And what I did is I took away the $1.221 million, which was in row T. That was the running total. And that way I figured out, under this scenario, we would have been using $236,000 out of the general fund. Now we're adding back in $112,000 with this amendment. And so I added $236,000 to $112,000, and I got to $348,000.
But we're not gonna cut these. Right?
That's correct. That's correct. It might be something, or after the meeting, you might just have to spend some time on it.
I got it.
Mr. Chair, we
Yep,
talked,
Supervisor.
we talked about the number so well. Could you have Mr. Cooley list the programs, please, again?
UW extension at $42,000, land conservation at $40,000, and Wisconsin, or UW Richland food service at $30,000.
Okay, Supervisor what?
Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is only if your revenues, there's potential that your revenues could increase and it wouldn't be this much, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, I think we'll probably take a roll call vote here pretty soon. There's no other discussion?
We're done with this now.
And I just want to make sure there's no other amendments that committee members want to make.
Is there another amendment? Can we go to another amendment?
Yes, go, that's what I'm saying. Yes, go ahead I'm sorry, let's see, we already took a vote on the amendments and the amendment passed. So yes, now we're open to new amendments. Yes.
I got it.
Good, okay. Supervisor Gentis got the dollar amount. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, point of information. Are we sure that we passed Mr. Cooley's amendment?
Clerk, did we pass the amendment? Yes, we did a 5-1 vote, Supervisor.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any additional amendments from committee members? Supervisor Cooley?
This one here's a little more difficult, but I make the amendment to remove resolution 1989 and 242,000 and move the furlough in its place, 220,000. My reasoning behind this is if we continue not to raise wages in the county, we're going to lose our county employees. I understand the furlough is, in my opinion, can be more easily absorbed by the employees than not having a raise. The net of that, what it would do to the general fund is it would raise that to, we would be taking 370,238 out of the general fund instead of the 348 that we're at right
Yeah. I think-
Okay, so we have an amendment by Supervisor Hui. Is there a second on the amendment? Okay, second by Supervisor Seep. So discussion on the amendment. I'll just give Scott a second to replace that. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Supervisor Love?
My only concern with the furloughs is it does create a lot of chaos in the departments. I mean, I worked at UW and we were furloughed only 8 days, and I was in a facility that had to have people all the time. It's just really complicated, and that for the little net gain that we're getting, I'm not sure it's worth the effort, I guess, is my thinking. I understand, I mean, basically what you're saying is they're not really gonna get a raise because we're cutting their wages, but then next year, their raises would still be in effect, and we would be giving them their raises next year. So I understand the premise behind it. I just worry that the chaos we're gonna create with the furloughs, because it is difficult. We already have to accommodate for sick leave and vacation time. And it's not like it's impossible, but it's definitely not as easy as just saying, everybody have a day off. And it wouldn't be countywide, you know, we would be focusing on, and I'm with the DA on this one. I'm not sure who qualifies as a 24/7. I'm assuming Pine Valley CNAs. And so anyway, I mean, I think it's complicated. And for that little net gain, I'm just not sure. I'd rather just give them a real raise and let it be real next year. That's just my thoughts.
Okay, Supervisor Seep?
Yes, Ms. Luck's concern is, I think, of great value. I think it's very difficult in our county, given the nature of our departments, to manage furloughs. I also believe that, just as a point of information, I think the proposal indicates that non-24-hour employees would be exempt from this. That would be exempt from Pine Valley, people in the sheriff's department, or anybody else that requires 3 shifts. So this would only apply to employees who basically day shift, as I understand it. Am I correct on that, Mr. Lynn?
Yes, I agree. We still have to maintain 24/7. Historically, last time a furlough was implemented, the mechanism potentially using a holiday was kind of a method that was used to try to help that demographic to absorb some of the costs.
So there would be some disparity in having a furlough, because you would not be able to have furloughs for a number of employees who are exempt because of the 3 shifts a day. Can you hear me?
Yes, so keep going.
So I am in favor. I'm not in favor of Mr. As much as I have great admiration for Mr. Cooley and his intellect and his concern here, which has been excellent of the contribution to these amendments. In this case, I would disagree, because I think it would be a nightmare trying to manage the furloughs. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Gensis?
The amount of 220, that's not, you figured that was all those 24/7, so they weren't included in that, right?
The number the number that was calculated was taken from the last time we had done it with 10 days furlough for those that we exercised the furlough with, amounted to approximately $100,000. So in kind of adding a 10% onto that from the last time we did it, expanding it to 20 days, or arrived at $220,000.
Okay, and the last furlough did not include the 24/7, right?
Correct.
Okay, any further discussion on the amendments?
Well,
Supervisor Brewer?
for clarification, Mark, then you were proposing replacing resolution 1989 with the furlough. Is that the gist of the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, clerk, let's take a roll call on this amendment, please.
No.
Cooley? Yes.
Judges?
Yes,
What?
No,
What do you want there?
No.
See?
No,
You in favor?
Okay, so that amendment fails. Any other amendments that committee members would like to propose? We do have, at least unless I can't see others, and correct me if I'm wrong, we do have two county board supervisors here today, Supervisor Carroll and Supervisor Glassrunner. I just want to give you guys an opportunity to talk while we've got this amended motion on the floor, if you choose to do so. Don't feel obligated. Either one of you? Want to? Supervisor Glassrunner? Sure. Well, and I might, clerk, can I? No? Okay, clerk won't do it. So, what I'd say, what we're doing, oh, go ahead. Yes, Mr. Leinrich?
Which motion are we looking for?
Oh, okay, wait. Let me take a shot at it then. So what we're doing here is we are moving forward. The motion on the table here is to move forward with the Finance and Personnel Committee set of budget adjustments, which have been amended once. And that amendment was to remove UW Extension at 42,000, remove Land Conservation at 40,000, remove UW Food Service at 30,000 for a total of 112,000. And while it's not stated in the amendment, we did have a discussion that that would mean that instead of taking $236,000 out of the general fund, we would be taking $348,000 out of the general fund. That's the amended motion that is on the floor right now. Anything else, Supervisor Glassford?
This is on. Hi. No, I guess, I agree with the previous statements about not dipping more into the general fund, and this would express that concern because of the previous resolution that had been passed, attempting to get us to that 25%. So that would be my difficulty with that particular amendment.
Okay, Supervisor Carroll?
Yes, I also have concern about the full ramification dipping that far into the general fund. I don't think we heard what exact percent we drop it down to. We've heard 25% the target, but I have not heard what this drawdown would bring that down to and what that impact might be.
Mr. Langrecht?
Bear with me a second here. Let me see if I can get back in files here.
Supervisor what?
my understanding was that with our last audit, we were at our 25% goal, correct?
That's correct.
The
yeah.
2018.
As of
audit.
the end of 2018.
We were at,
Trending up.
trending up.
That's correct. I think one of the challenges that we've discussed is currently at the county, we don't have the capability of tracking where we are at mid-year. We have to wait each year to get that audit. And at that point, we're almost a year behind. So I'm assuming that's one thing that we will be working toward as we make changes. Our structure here. But yeah, it is one of those things right now where we really don't have the information that would allow us to make a up-to-date decision on that, unfortunately.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Seat.
if my memory serves me correctly, the 2018 general fund ended up 26% on the basis of the audit.
That matches my memory as well. Yes, and I do think the dollar amount was quite a bit lower than Mr. Langreich, than the dollar amount that you had given, but I thought that was because we were only looking at, I thought it was expenses that weren't related to federal and state revenues. I thought that was just expenses related to maybe our tax levy and our sales tax. I could be wrong on that. I've got a lot to learn with this, but that was, we got to dig back into that audit to see what, I thought that was written into the audit at one page, but I might not remember correctly.
That is something I need to further educate myself on. I think the intent is there. I think it's just our resolution that we have in place as 25% of our total expenditures, where dealing with other public entities, it's usually like a 25% of your expenditures that are coming from levy or that are coming from your pocketbook versus other different revenue types of streams and grants and such. But again, that's something that I need to firm up for you folks.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, Supervisor Brewer.
if it truly is an amount then equal to expenditures, coming from levy, then that amount's gonna be considerably lower than the $8 million mentioned here. So,
Correct.
I don't think we know what 25% is.
Just the math with the 25% of $33 million is 8.58 million, 800, or 8,580,000. So it's, and that was at the 26% that we said that we thought we were at. In that case, if you're looking at that, to still stay at the 25%. I mean, I didn't do math on that. I don't know what that number is, but there must be, 1% difference, whatever that 1% is on $33 million. I'm assuming that that's $300,000 is not affecting that or lowering it below our goal.
And yeah, there's just so much, I would just say there's so much we don't know at this point in order to make a decision, on that. But I do know that in general, when we look at having a 25% cash reserve, another way to say that is it's 3 months of expenses in the bank at any given point, because it's 25% of the year, which would be 3 out of 12 months. So I think the intent originally of that resolution, and obviously I wasn't on the board, so I'm not exactly sure, but I think the intent was to bring the general fund balance up because it had gone so dangerously low. So it was an attempt to do that. I also believe, though, the resolution says there would be no borrowing to make up for that. And obviously, we've changed course on that. So there will be a need to update that resolution at some point to more accurately reflect our practices and where we want to go forward.
General fund coming out of 2018 into 2019. Oh, I'm sorry. As of December 2018. So yes, coming into 2019 from the last audit, it was at $3,928,702, which was an increase up from 2017 of $507,000.
And what was the balance in 2017? The balance was 3.9 million in the 18. Would it have been like 3.4 million then?
You would have brought it up 500,000, it would have been about 3.4.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, a lot more to learn there, Supervisor Carroll. So good question to bring up.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Supervisor, was there someone else?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor, do you mind if Supervisor Glassbrunner goes first too?
I'm happy to hear from you.
Okay.
It's okay. I think this doesn't apply because if I'm correct, am I limited to discussion on this amendment only?
So right now we have an amended motion on the floor. So we've already passed the amendment. So if your discussion is.
But I mean, if it was related to a previous motion,
what's your comment about?
I was just, as I'm looking at the two different sheets with the average board and the the average, finance and personnel. There were not a lot of differences. Some of the so it was like Q, item H, and item number or letter BB were the ones that were different. And some of those are some larger number items. I guess the thing that is driving some of the consideration that I went into this, and I would agree with Supervisor Gentis on the regret that the resolution of increasing the wages this year is a concern, is because even though we're talking about removing some of these, you guys are making the motion for the extension, food services and land conservation. And I was looking at that is none of these cuts are pleasant, but prioritizing some of the essential services and then also looking at when we're talking about that resolution with the increase of the wage. And I hear Supervisor Luck's statement that this may not be the year, but as I'm thinking about the fact of our wage study and where we fall when we compare to other counties and the effect that that might have on retention and recruitment, that becomes a big concern going forward and potentially impacting our budget in that sense. And so I just wanted to voice my support for, I think, a concern expressed by Supervisor Gentis that that is not being in consideration because I do think that may have a somewhat large negative impact.
Yeah, Supervisor C.
Yes, I appreciate very much the comment of Supervisor Glassbrenner. We have really three choices. We have the wage increase, we have the insurance matter, and we have the question of furloughs. Making those choices, it seems to me that Mr. Cooley's motion to deal with the furloughs, to eliminate furloughs as a penalty, is certainly preferable. And I don't see a better option than what we're proposing.
Okay, Supervisor Luck.
I just want to make a brief comment. I just, I think that employees, when you give them a raise, but then furlough them, so it's really a wash, and play with their benefits, I don't think that helps retention either. And I think that if we want to give raises, it should be a real raise and not us playing games. So
Right.
that's just my.
I certainly agree.
Okay, I think we are ready to vote on the amended motion. Are there any objections? So, clerk, can you please take a roll call on this one?
This is the original motion.
Correct. This is the original motion as amended.
Brewer. Aye. Cooley. Aye. Gentis.
Aye.
Luck.
Aye.
Murphy Lopez.
No.
Steve.
I thank Mr. Cooley and I say aye.
5 in favor, 1 against.
Okay, so the amended motion passes. So, did you have a question about the amended motion?
I just want, I was kind of interested to hear your reason for voting it.
So, yeah, my reason for voting no against this is I've got a couple of concerns. One concern is that we are dipping into the general fund more than we were previously. I'm concerned that we're not going to address some of these systemic issues that we have with spending and our revenues not matching them. And then my third issue is not starting with that county board set of adjustments. So I need a little time personally to sit through these and look at the differences like Supervisor Glassbrenner was between the finance and the county board one to really think that through. And I think this leads right into agenda item, the next agenda item on our agenda today, which is future agenda items proposals. And I'm going to start with one item, and this kind of relates to this request for a special meeting of the Richland County Board that has been passed around, and I don't yet believe we have majority of county board supervisors who have signed this, but I think we're getting pretty close. And for our September 29th meeting, which we had approved as part of our process before, that would be next Tuesday. I think it would be helpful to have the full county board present if they want to come, and to be able to have some sort of a study session about where the budget, the final budget that we're recommending to the county board as a committee, so that, you know, some of the questions can be answered that county board supervisors might have, and also so that there can be time for county board supervisors to talk about what they think has so far worked well about this process this year, and what hasn't worked well, and what they'd like to see change for the next time around. So that would be one idea I have, is to broaden the conversation officially so that we're all legal with our corporation counsel, and we can have those county board members weighing in before the October 27th meeting, just to make sure people are able to air a lot of their questions and issues.
I would not like a night meeting, I have another engagement that night. Maybe a 5 o'clock meeting, but not 7.
Okay, well, we can discuss, let's discuss the time when we get to agenda item number 7, adjournment. So I'm just gonna go around the table and see if there's any other future agenda items, proposals that committee members have. So Supervisor Brewer?
Well, I'll just add to Sean's comments. If we do want to have a special board meeting, that requires a petition of at least, I think, 11 board members, is that correct? Correct. Majority. So I think we've already nailed down about 8 of those. So Ingrid and Steve, we want to get your signatures today.
Actually, we have 10 now. Supervisor Glassbrenner has signed it, and as Supervisor Carroll would sign it, then we would have our 11.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me. Chair.
Yeah, Ms. Scott?
Before you consider an evening meeting here, we really should consider availability, because that's a Tuesday evening, and I'm not certain of availability of this call on that date.
Okay, so let's hold off until we get to adjournment on that one. So we're gonna go around the room here with future agenda items, proposals, and then we'll get to that one, Scott. So Supervisor
I
Gentis?
don't have anything.
Okay, Supervisor Luck?
I just had a thought, kind of based on what you were just talking about. I agree with you that I think we are not addressing some of our systemic issues. And one of the things that I am interested in, I think potentially this is a part of a strategic plan, but that the administrator take the time to, over the next year, review our departments and our staffing levels in depth, so that instead of these cuts that kind of just keep popping up, we actually have, an in-depth study of what our department's needs are, so that we can better evaluate their staffing levels. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Supervisor C?
Yes, thank you for that comment, Ms. Locke, Supervisor Locke. I think he makes a very important.
Actually, I need to interrupt here and just remind everyone that when we go to this agenda item, we cannot get into discussion on the merits or demerits of any potential idea. Because we haven't properly noticed the public. So all we're doing here is just listing out future agenda item proposals that committee members might have for future.
Yes, I'm not addressing the merits, because I'm adding an agenda item that dovetails with Ms. Lux.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
And that is that we should incorporate in taking a look at these departments, some sort of a task analysis, which might require a professional consulting firm such as Carlson Decker. But task analysis is the engine of analysis and determining the department's performance. Thank you.
Supervisor Cooey? I don't have anything. Okay, all right, so with that, we'll move on to item number 7, adjournment, and let's discuss the date and location for the next meeting. So we have Tuesday, September 29th, currently on the calendar for this location at 1 p.m. Is that correct, Administrator Leonard?
I believe what I'm tracking, Director Scott is going to confirm.
Okay, and then would committee members like to do a different time, I'm wondering?
I do not do the evening.
Should we stick to 1 p.m.?
Well,
can the other board make it here at that time? I know, you get into trouble, everybody gets up. Or, Wednesday works good for some people, I don't know.
You want an evening meeting, is that what you're asking for?
I think he might be suggesting that more board members would be able to make it in the evening, but without surveying them, we might not know that.
Do they have to meet for the company?
Well, late afternoon, coincides with bus driving.
Oh, right.
But, I can skip a day of bus driving. I have to.
I could drive in your place.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I go with you.
I don't even know.
That'd be
That's-
fun.
I won't even say what I want to say.
yeah.
Is that legal, Mr. Seep?
Mr. Velocik could testify that I'm a very good driver.
Could we move the time of the meeting up on the afternoon of Tuesday to, let's say, 12:30, even noon?
Barbara shaking
So Ms. Scott, yeah, what do you know about the time reservation?
This facility is not available at all on the 29th or the 30th. So we can do that, you just have to pick a different place.
Okay, so I don't think we should worry about the place right now. I think we just need to set our time. And then we'll,
What about Monday night?
if we want to do it on Monday, the 28th instead, does that give staff enough time to prepare the final budget? We move it up half a day?
Every day counts. I can't speak on each individual department. We'll be crunching either way. I guess I would entertain also, is there a way potentially, in not knowing how much discussion is going to be, is there a potential to do it like on a WebEx type of a platform for folks to feel comfortable doing that? I know we lose out on the interaction, and it's a heck of a lot harder piece to manage from a chair perspective. Just a thought to throw in. We're stuck in between the balance. I mean, it really comes down to getting it put together to present to you folks, and then I'm sure we're still going to have some bits and pieces to try to iron out post that meeting on some types of changes, but to have it all packaged up so we can get it off the paper through the clerk's office, which we have to get out the following week, no later than Thursday. Is that correct? I think 8 is the date for
October 2nd.
October 2nd. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, we're in a pinch window, so it's going to be a challenge either way. To get the numbers reconfirmed by departments into Victor's office, to get them then kind of confirmed by your folks and cemented into the computer system, and then get that distroed out to the papers on the 2nd. Yeah, we're in the 28th or the 29th, the 30th is kind of pushing it to.
Okay, so what I'm kind of hearing is maybe we should stick with our 1 p.m. time on the 29th. Yep.
What's the purpose of this meeting that we're trying to get together?
So this is our regularly scheduled finance and personnel committee meeting, so we'll have other agenda items as well. So instead of doing the first Tuesday in October, we're doing the last Tuesday in September to give staff enough time to publish the budget in the paper. So we'll have other items on the agenda as well, but then assuming that we have a quorum of the county board at this next meeting, there will also be a kind of a study session opportunity for other county board members to have those questions and comments about this final budget.
But the county board we can't make any changes to it anyway at that point, correct?
No, it would just be for sake of having a discussion, you could have more than 11 people kind of talk to their effect on it.
Yeah, that's right. Really, we are just kind of we're making it official what we did today.
Because we don't vote on the budget till the end of the month on the October, right?
No, the 29th meeting will be for your folks to essentially say this is the final product so that we can put it in the paper no later than October 2nd, so we can have it posted 3 weeks prior for the 27th.
Okay, so any objection to, adjourning to Tuesday, September 29th at
You got it,
1
that
p.m.?
date here. Barb? You were checking Monday?
Yep, I am.
I think that's all right.
So I'm thinking we need to just adjourn to the same time. I don't think we're gonna find a new time that's necessarily perfect. And location, we'll just have to figure that out.
If we can find a different forum that can accommodate in person. Otherwise, again, too, if there's a comfort in trying to do this remotely.
Can you find, was the 28th available or not, Barb?
We have a Southwest Regional Planning meeting that day, so here.
Oh, here. What? What time is it?
I think 1 o'clock.
Okay, so I'm gonna go, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, September 29th at 1 p.m.
So
Location
moved.
to be determined. Okay, motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, a social comment. I showered a lot of praise on Mr. Cooley today, but we deserve it. I also want to thank Mr. Langford and the staff for all the hard work